time for the Property Podcast, where every week tens of thousands of property investors, new and experienced, join together to get news, knowledge and laughs at our expense. With me, Rob Bence.
And me, Rob Dix. Join us every Thursday morning for your weekly dose of property ideas and motivation. Then head over to our website at thepropertypodcast.com to keep the conversation going. Now though, let's get started.
Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Property Podcast. I'm Rob Bence, and with me every week is Rob Dix. Hello, Rob.
Good morning, Rob. Good morning, everyone. So this week we are talking about overseas property. I think this is the first time we've ever gone outside the UK for an episode. So we're going to give you an overview of the things to think about if you're considering investing abroad. We've also got a couple of really exciting bits of news, including the big thing that we trailed last week. So I will not say anything more about that right now, but it's coming up very soon.
Of course it is. We will not keep you in suspense for much longer, and don't fast forward, that's cheating. Okay, first of all, a massive thank you to the people who've left reviews. As always, we've got a stack coming in week on week, but the following, thank you very much. First of all, Bossack says, useful, inspiring and entertaining. Great stuff, guys. But I've listened to every episode and heard no mention of tax. This is my biggest fear as a newbie investor. Some navigating the rules and regulations would be appreciated. Well, Bossack, as we're a little bit behind on reviews because we get so many in, you now have that text episode. So thank you for your feedback. I hope you enjoyed it. Next, from Money Stepper says, great show, highly educational, entertaining podcast from Rob and Rob, who are great, personable and knowledgeable presenters. Been listening every week since the start and look forward to the Thursday release each week. Have fun at the meetup. Sorry I can't be there. An avid listener from the south of France. And Money Stepper Rob was the kind person who left us a review of all our podcasts on their website, moneystepper.com.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. And a timely one for this episode as well.
And finally, Joe says, great podcast. An excellent resource for anyone interested in property investment. I recently bought my first investment and it's nothing short of a disaster. Oh, however, after listening to Rob and Rob, I feel confident enough to give it another go. Thanks, guys, and keep up the good work. So it wasn't our fault, Rob.
I was worried there for a moment.
Thank you, Joe, Money Stepper and Bossack. We really appreciate those reviews.
We really do. And the reviews that we've had are in no small part responsible for our appearance in a book, which is actually coming out today. We mentioned this vaguely before, and it's going to be our resource of the week. So I'm not going to say anything more about it now. The fact that we got picked up and featured in this book was really because of the community and the reviews that everyone's left for us. So thank you for that. And more coming up about that book in the resource of the week later on.
Right, Rob. We've got a joint section now. What we've done this week and news of the week, because they are completely interlinked. We've got a massive launch, haven't we?
We have. We've been working really hard on this. We've been promoting it hard enough. Well, we've been teasing it hard enough, I should say, for the last couple of weeks. But now, why don't you do the honours and do the big reveal?
Ladies and gentlemen, we introduce to you the Property Hub. Probably doesn't give you too much now, but we'll tell you exactly what that is and why you should be very excited. It's a new home for everything we do. Rob has the Property Geek, I have RMP, I have Property News Radio, Rob has the Property Geek podcast, and of course, we have the Property Podcast as well. What we want is one place to gather it all, a hub, if you like. So we now have the propertyhub.net. But what's more is not only will you be able to find all this stuff in one place, but we're creating a forum for you, our listeners. And we're really, really excited about this. This may sound like a simple step to take, but starting a forum is a huge undertaking. Lots of hours have already gone in and lots more will. But this is for you, our fantastic listeners. Rob, can you go into a little bit more detail of exactly, who's going to benefit from this and who should be listening?
Yeah, so we've been working extremely hard on this because what we really want to do is put together a community which is completely free, first of all, and open to everyone. What we really want to do is create a positive, supportive community filled with people who want to better themselves and reach their goals and do it through property investment, and make it a place where you can share news, share ideas, ask questions, get support from us and each other. We're so excited about this and we feel a need for it. We've had such amazing interactions with people over the last 6 months or so, and we really want to take that into a format where it's not just a kind of us yakking once a week and then getting some emails back. We want to make this into like a constant back and forth and kind of connect everyone and just bring that real positivity that we feel back from the listeners that sometimes is missing elsewhere on the internet, and just create this amazing resource for everyone to really push themselves forward.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we created it, because we do speak to lots of people via email and on the phone, and we had the meetup, and we'll do more of those as well. And it's fantastic, but everyone will benefit more if we can put this into a forum. And there's lots of good forums out there, but there's not really one for our listeners, because we know the type of mix of people we get. And a lot of the forums out there are very advanced, or very, this is for landlords, advanced landlords, or this is for, a place to complain, or, there's lots of forums out there for different reasons, but not a place for people on their journey, starting out or just started out, where they can mix of like-minded people, not be sold to, and just enjoy each other's companies and learn from each other.
I should go into infomercial mode, but wait, there's more. That's all great. That's going to be really, really exciting, but we wanted to have another layer as well. So all of that is going to be completely free. We're really excited about it, but if you do want even more motivation, even more training, and even more expert advice, we are going to have a paid option as well, where you can pay for a monthly membership. And what that's going to get you is some private forums where you can share your progress, things that you might not want to share out in the open on the internet, but you can share that stuff with a friendly, tight-knit group of investors. And we're going to have guest experts in there as well. So if a question comes up related to something specific that Rob and I don't know a lot about, you can get a quick answer from someone who really knows their stuff on that subject area. Also, with a smaller group, we're going to be able to do far more personal things. So there'll be monthly hangouts with me and Rob. There'll be the option to participate and get into small groups with other members, mastermind groups where you can share your goals and help each other and have regular conversations. And we're also going to be recording lots of courses and training materials over the next year. All of those are going to be completely free if you get this monthly membership. So there's going to be a heck of a lot for everyone. But if you want even more of that community feeling and more personal interaction, we've got this extra layer for you as well.
What everyone has to understand straight away is this is not a money-making exercise for either of us. We've got our own successful businesses that are doing very well and our own property portfolios. There's lots of costs to building something this big, and it's a huge undertaking. There's designers, there's all the hosting, there's people employed to operate it for us on a full-time basis. There's a lot to it. So by having this extra forum, the people involved in that side get the massive benefit of a small knit community, but they're also helping the wider community enjoy the free forum as well. So it's a win-win for everyone. In the free section, then fantastic, you can enjoy the community. And if you're in the paid section, then fantastic. You get the small community and the interaction with us on a more regular basis. And you're helping the wider community as well get access to the free forum. It's a situation where everybody's winning. And hopefully that will help us not make too much of a loss on it and pay for all the hosting and the training materials and the staff that we need to employ to run this. So I hope you're really excited. We really are.
We're going big on this. We're going to invest really heavily in it. We're going to try and do everyone proud, because seriously, we're so grateful for everything that our listeners have done for us over the last 34 episodes. We feel a real need for something like this. It feels like that need is not being met, and we're going to try and do it. And so we're not going to half-arse it. We're going to try and make this absolutely amazing. That's our job. We're kind of putting it out there now and saying we want this to be absolutely amazing. Rob's going to tell you in a minute it's going to launch at the start of 2014, and we hope that by the end of 2014 it is the destination for anyone who wants to get involved in property investment. So Rob, with that big statement, why don't you tell everyone what to do next?
You've completely stolen my thunder. The launch is on January the 9th, as Rob's just said. I've been working on this for a while, and we need more time to put it together. As I say, this is not going to be a one-page website with a little bit of content on. There's lots to do. So we're launching on the 9th of January, so get that in your calendars. But don't feel like you can't do anything between now and then. Go straight to thepropertyhub.net and sign up right now. Even if you're on our mailing list, sign up to thepropertyhub.net, because you're going to be the new community. So the mailing list, absolutely, you will hear about it, but thepropertyhub.net is going to take over. So please go over there, sign up right now, and let us know that you're interested, and we will keep you regularly informed, a little bit more so than the mailing list. If you're interested in becoming a paid member, we've got a silly joining offer. We've basically slashed the cost massively if anybody wants to join right now. So if you're interested and you're excited about all the extra stuff Rob's already talked about, then you can join straight away. Now, we're only opening it to 30 people, so we can really get to work with you, the first 30, the founders, if you like, to find out what you like, what you don't like, and you will get access to both forums before anybody else. The first 30 people, you are our beta testers, so we want to thank you by giving you a really, really low offer to get in. We just want to make this a fantastic product for everyone. By working with these 30 people, we can really find out what you like, what you don't like, and of course, you get access first as well as a great deal. Get over to thepropertyhub.net now and sign up. If you're interested in the free bit, get on there. And if you're interested in the extra bit, have a look too. It's all in there, all the information. As you can tell, we're a little bit excited, and I've only had one cup of coffee.
Yeah, I think we've just spent so many hours on this over the last few weeks, so to finally let the cat out of the bag is a great feeling, and I'm really excited to see what happens. Go over to thepropertyhub.net, and if you're driving or something and you can't remember the URL, don't worry, just go to thepropertypodcast.com as usual, check out the show notes, and that'll link you straight over there.
So, Rob, we actually have a topic of the week as well.
Oh yeah, we do. Okay, the topic of the week is not ourselves. The topic of the week is Beginner's Guide to Overseas Property Investment. So we've not done an overseas episode yet. It's not either of our major areas of expertise or experience, but it is something that people think about a lot. So we thought we should give it an episode, and in future weeks, we're going to drill down into some specifics of investing in particular countries by getting some experts involved to tell us about that, as we have done in the past with mortgages and tax. But this is just going to be an overview. So a lot of people seem to like the idea of investing overseas for various reasons. It can be extremely fruitful. It can also be totally disastrous. Before the last crash, some people made vast amounts of money with overseas property and other people lost everything. And so we're going to try to set you up so you can decide whether it is something you want to do, and then if it is, how to avoid some of the risks that are associated with it.
Okay, great. So before you consider overseas property investment, ask yourself why. Why are you doing this? Because that question will help you an awful lot and will either push you forward to continue or actually stop you making a huge mistake. Realize your intentions, question yourself before you move forward any further. Now, are you buying just a holiday home, or is it purely investment? Or is it going to be a mix of the two? Make sure you're clear what it is. Is it a holiday home first? Is it investment first? Or is it just a purely investment property that you'll never visit or go to or live in? Have a think about what you want. Is this because you're trying to diversify out of your UK portfolio? So you've done very well in the UK. You understand the market here well, but you just want to have a look at what else is out there, possibly a currency hedge. So all your money's in the pound, especially if you're someone who moves around a lot internationally, like Rob, for example, then maybe currency hedge is part of your reason if you're heavy on the pound. One word of caution though, if you're looking at holiday home and you're motivated by the thought of having a nice place in the sun and that you can make a bit of money from it, don't delude yourselves. It's a lot more work than you'd think. I've done it. I had a property for a while in Cyprus. The work effort that goes into it is huge. So don't delude yourself that, we can have a nice place with a pool and make a bit of profit on the side from it all. It's not for you if that's your motivation. It's got to be more than that, because you have to understand that there's a lot of work involved. But we're going to cover a lot of this in this topic.
Yeah, so they're the reasons why you might want to do it. And I suppose the first step is being honest with yourself about why you want to do it. Having made that decision and decided to look into it a little bit more, the next step, I suppose, is picking a country. So you've got to kind of decide where you want to invest and take a real kind of top-down approach to narrowing down where might make a good investment. There are a number of factors to look out for and some boxes that you want to tick. And the first one is political stability. For example, if you invest in Germany, politically, that's going to be pretty stable. You don't know what's going to happen in the future, but you've got the sense that any changes are going to be relatively slow and predictable. Contrast that with Egypt, where there are lots of holiday homes being built. In Egypt, as we've seen in recent years, things can change very, very quickly, and you don't want your investment to be kind of tossed around by the broader political changes that are going on. So stability is good, because this is something that you're potentially going to be holding for a long time, and you want to know that the conditions when you buy are going to be relatively consistent the whole way through your holding period. Also, you want to look at the legal system of that country, particularly the property laws. Again, countries like Germany have got a very robust legal system. Other countries that might be touted as being the next big thing, like, for example, I was at the property investment show the other week and saw people talking about Montenegro. I don't know anything about Montenegro, but if I was looking into it and I was checking out the claims that this investment company was making, I'd want to look into the legal system and especially the property laws to see how robust they are. You also want to look at the land registry. Do they have an equivalent of the land registry to protect your interests and make data available to you? Also, the broader economic conditions. So you can look at things like unemployment, GDP, inflation rates. Again, these are factors that are going to affect the value of your property, also demand for it if you're going to be renting it out to locals rather than as a holiday home. Then there's the stability of the currency as well. So as well as the political stability, how stable is the currency? If you're taking your money in pounds and you're investing it in the local currency, whatever it is, how stable is that currency going to be? If it's fluctuating all over the place, then even if property prices stay relatively consistent, if the currency is going all over the place, that's going to affect your wealth when you eventually need to convert it back into pounds. So that's linked to something called currency risk, which we're going to cover later on. And then finally, there is taxes. People often make the mistake of not looking into taxes and just assuming that it's going to be similar to the UK, but that's not necessarily the case at all. Something that might look very good on paper before you look at taxes, you might not realise that the tax rate on your income is 50% or something like that. So that's political stability, the legal system, the land registry, economic conditions, currency stability, and taxes. So it's all due diligence again, but this is a whole extra layer that you're having to do on top of what you do if you're investing in the UK.
Absolutely. You've nailed it, Rob, because in the UK, you know all that, or you should do anyway. This is the type of thing that people forget when they invest overseas and don't spend enough time on. So it might not sound sexy, but it's so important to dig down and understand all that detail. So do not invest overseas until you have gone through all that list. But also, when you're picking a country to invest in, there's other things to look at. So is lending possible, for example? Not every country has a lending system for investors. Turkey up until recently, you couldn't get lending on investment properties. It's only the last few years they've started to introduce lending. Other countries are similar. So is lending possible? Don't just assume it is. Leave a deposit and then find out you can't get a mortgage on the property or the investment you're looking at. Who will you rent to? So exactly the same in the UK. Think of your fundamentals. Is it a holiday home, or are you buying an apartment or a house in a particular city overseas? Who's your target market? Who are you going to let the property to? Don't just assume that people are going to start letting your property because you bought it. It's not a case, I've bought it, they will come. You need to go and research your market, who you're going to rent to, and understand that fully. And just as importantly, who you're going to sell to. Is there a market to sell to? You're being sold to. Are you just looking, or is there a liquid market out there that people will buy and sell property? There are plenty of examples over the last few years where people have bought properties and then gone to sell them and there's no market for them. Who are you going to buy from? Are you going to buy from a UK agency or someone on the ground level? UK agency, you've got someone here you can contact on a regular basis, hopefully. So that's the advantage there. But if they're selling it, there's probably a fair margin in it. Overseas, it might be a little bit more work, but you might be getting a better deal by going local and flying over there and trying to meet the local sellers, potentially. But then they may be harder to deal with afterwards. So think about it. Don't just take one option, look at both. And finally, when you look at that country, are you going to go for new build or old? If it's a new build, who's building it? What's their track record? Are they just jumping on a wave of property prices rising? Or have they got a track record? You need to understand that.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, look at the big picture, take a top-down approach to picking the country. The next step is picking an investment within that country. And Rob's given you an overview of all the things to think about there. But then there are going to be risks associated with it. There are all the risks that you would get with any kind of property investment. But then, as a consequence of going abroad, there are some extra risks as well, aren't there?
Of course. And Cyprus is a great case point of this now, and it's an extreme example, but this is Europe. This is not some distant country with a crazy political system. If you actually go through the list above, Cyprus would have ticked most of those boxes. I've worked in Cyprus and, as I say, invested there as well. The deal fell over last minute, but we'd exchanged on it and we were renting that property out, so there's a lot of money spent. The lending collapsed over there. There was issues with the title deeds and the local property market. The locals, many of them were priced out of the properties that people were buying here in the UK. A lot of us got taken in by the capital growth in a country like Cyprus. You would deem it to be normally safe, but actually, there's things that can go wrong. So that's an example of the risks, but we're going to go dig into a little bit more detail.
So let's take some specifics. So one thing that can happen is tax changes and policy changes. Of course, things can happen with the tax treatment and housing policy in the UK as well. But as an overseas investor, it might be that there could be changes that would affect you and not the locals. So, for example, in 2012 in France, there was a change of government, and the new government in France brought in a new law, an extra 15.5% tax on rental income for foreign owners. And there was a big debate at the time about whether you could offset that against your UK tax, and it turned out that you couldn't for the most part. Basically, you just suddenly, overnight, taking an extra 15% hit. That didn't affect the locals, it only affected foreign investors because, of course, not many governments are going to make such a dramatic change that's going to affect all the people who vote for them that quickly. So as a foreign investor, you might find yourself being at the whims of more kind of tax and policy changes than anyone else. So that's something that's always going to be a risk. And that's why political stability is quite important as well, as we talked about earlier. The other thing that you might be exposed to, but not necessarily, is bubbles bursting. If you're investing in something which is being marketed heavily, being talked about a lot, being hyped, then it's possible that there's a bubble underway. And when bubbles form, they eventually tend to burst. An example is Bulgaria. In Bulgaria, property prices went up 300% between 2000 and 2008. And then after 2008, surprise, surprise, they've dramatically collapsed. Now, I spent some time in Bulgaria earlier this year, and you can just tell from walking around that the fundamentals, the infrastructure that's in place never justified the prices that were being charged at the top of the market, not by a long way. The market was being driven by hype in the run-up to 2008. If you'd bought in the peak there, you would have lost a lot of money. And interesting fact, if you search Bulgarian property in Google, it auto completes to Bulgarian property scam, which tells us that in the height of the market, a lot of people were trying to prey on naive foreign investors and get their money. If you're investing sensibly, if you're investing on the same kind of, based on the same kind of cold logic that you would in the UK, then you don't have to worry so much about bubbles bursting any more than you would do in the UK. But it is something you have to be worried about if you're getting excited by the prospects of some exciting trend you can buy into abroad. You need to make really sure that it's a genuine opportunity and not marketing hype.
Yeah, as I've said before, if you are seeing an area hyped as the big thing, the hotspot, the place where your money's going to double in 2 years, you've missed the boat. You know, once everyone's talking about it, the best gains have been missed and potentially it's overheated. As a minimum, you've missed the best of it. Worst case, you could be in a big bubble that's about to go pop. If everyone's talking about it, it's the big thing that everyone's making piles of cash from, maybe avoid it. So currency risk is the next one. And here's a really simple example. If you invest in property in the US and your property appreciates by 20%, may sound fantastic. But if you bought cash and at the same time, the dollar has fallen 30% or weakened by 30%, then you've actually made a loss because there's currency involved. You're not buying with the British pound, you're buying in a different currency. So it may seem that you're doing really well, but you have to account for the currency as well. If you use a mortgage, then the numbers aren't quite the same because there's leverage involved. But it's definitely a variable to be thinking about because it can dramatically change whether you're doing well or losing out in property. Don't just put it into the back of your mind. Currency is a massive part of investing overseas.
Okay, and then just another really quick one. Specifically, if you're going to be thinking about holiday lets, then you need to think about changes to the infrastructure. For example, how many airlines service the local airport? If it's just one, then you're very vulnerable. For example, if EasyJet flies to the place where you're going to be investing, that might seem great. It's really cheap for people to come over and stay in your place. But what happens if EasyJet stops flying there? That could very easily happen. You've got no control over it. And then suddenly, to get there, people are going to have to fly somewhere, get a bus, do this, do that, and your demand is going to absolutely drop. So it sounds quite basic, it sounds quite silly, but you do want a bit of redundancy built in. If there's a few airlines flying there and the infrastructure is in place, then you're pretty safe. You can look like a good opportunity. It can be built on shaky foundations if you're just relying on one provider.
Finally, lack of knowledge is a big risk because you don't know, unless you've lived there, you don't know that market as well as you do here at home. If you're from the UK, you've grew up with this market, you understand it inside out. You understand the dips and the rises and got a much better feel for the property market. However, if you're overseas, that lack of knowledge is a real risk. You have to educate yourself. And the people you work with as well, you have to research. Now, if you're buying for a UK agent, does the reality match up to their fancy marketing brochures? Do that extra bit of research more than you would here in the UK. And if you're going over there and you're working with someone on the ground, can you trust them? What's their reputation? Have you researched them? Are you being ripped off because you don't understand the market? So your lack of knowledge is a massive risk. So you need to educate yourself.
Yeah. So what's the answer to that? The answer is to make yourself an expert. You don't want to be in a position where you're relying on marketing brochures or relying on a nice salesperson who you meet. So in the same way that people often make bad decisions and think short term when they're on holiday, you don't want to be doing that when it comes to overseas property. You want to approach it with exactly the same due diligence as you would in the UK, plus a boatload more as well. And a simple check for that is, does it work as a cash flowing investment? Capital growth is great. Capital growth may well happen, but if you're investing purely for the promise of capital growth, that could be a sign that there's something not quite right. Always focus on cash flow. Does it make sense as a cash flowing investment? Make yourself an expert. Do all the work. Go there and spend some time on the ground and convince yourself that it really is as good an opportunity as it seems. Because as we've said, huge amounts can be won and lost. It can be great diversification. It could be a lot of fun, but make sure that you're looking at it realistically. You don't just like the dream of having a place abroad.
Great. I think that you nailed it, Rob, with making yourself an expert. If you're not relying on other people and you're relying on your own knowledge and due diligence, then you're going to stand a lot better chance of being successful if overseas property is for you. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. We've got our resource of the week now. A big thank you to John Reed, who is the author of this book, because he's included the property podcast within it. Now, the book we've mentioned quite a few episodes back. We talked about us being featured in this book, but it's actually launched today. So today, this podcast went out on November the 7th. If you're listening to it a few weeks later, then you can still go out and buy this book. But if you're listening on the day of launch, you can actually jump on Amazon now and buy it. We'll link to it in the show notes so you can get the book. But it's called Get Up to Speed with Online Marketing, and it's a second edition, so it's fully up to date. John sent us a book. It's really, really good. We're really grateful to be even included in there. It's got some great write-ups. So have a look at the book. Go and order it on Amazon. Well worth a purchase. And thank you to John for including us in that book. We're really honoured.
Yeah, we really are. But it also speaks to how up to date the book is. Because we've only been around for, 6 months or so? And we're already in there as a case study, and the book's coming out right now. So I'm sure all the other examples in the book that he's talking about are super up to date as well. And you know that all the tactics he's talking about are going to work and isn't something that was good 2 or 3 years ago. So if you've got your own business and you're interested in online marketing, that's really well worth checking out. And thank you to John for including us.
Yeah, thank you, John. So our resource of the week is Get Up to Speed with Online Marketing. Okay, Rob, next week, we've got an interesting topic. It's the biggest regrets in property investments.
Yeah, but it's not going to be a complete downer, I promise. Let's not say any more about what the content's going to be, but please do listen. It's not going to be just us moaning for half an hour.
By listening, hopefully you'll avoid those regrets that other people have. So make sure you listen and you'll be a little bit wiser off the back of it. Finally, that leaves us to say, get to the propertyhub.net right now and get yourself on that list so you can find out more. And if you're interested in the upgraded package, then, get there quickly because there's only 30 places. And this is not 30 places and we'll open it up to 600, because people keep jumping on. We've lowered the price dramatically and we can't really sustain it for more than 30 people. Plus, when we're opening that access for the month before, we just want a very small community to begin with. Jump on. If you're really interested in the free forum, fantastic. We can't wait to interact with you on there. And if you're interested in the upgraded version, then make sure you check out thepropertyhub.net too. That just leaves me to say, go to thepropertyhub.net now.
Do you get that? Go to thepropertyhub.net.
I promise next week we might not say thepropertyhub.net as much as we have said thepropertyhub.net this week.
But then again, we might. See you next week.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Property Podcast. Make sure you join our mailing list at thepropertypodcast.com.
And remember, we love 5-star reviews. Rob even loves them more than air miles.